Hey guys, this is Focus Space's tutorial on exterior caulking for hardyboard. We use Quad Max. This is a superior caulk. It is waterproof. It's very messy, so you want to make sure that you have some kind of rags around because it can get on everything and it will stay on everything. But it's a really nice quality product. We've been using it for years now and really happy with it. A couple things to keep in mind when you're using this with any caulking really is temperature. So make sure that your caulking is not too cold, otherwise you're going to struggle with getting it out of the tube. So having this either in a vehicle in the morning before you get on site, or keeping it indoors if you have an indoor space to keep it warm, you're going to fight a lot less with it. This is a really viscous, thick material, so it really comes out tough when it's cold. So first step of this process is going to be cutting your caulk. So you're going to come with your knife. A lot of people that I've seen will cut an angle, and a lot of people think that's the way to go. It is actually not the most efficient way to caulk. So I always cut a flat, and you want to think about, if you come over here to our trim that we're going to be caulking out, you want to think about the width you want your bead of caulk. So the farther down you cut on your tube, you're going to have a wider opening, obviously. So the width we're going for is approximately 1/4 inch, because we have about an 1/8 inch spacing. Ideally, not all of our seams are perfect, but ideally we have about an 1/8 inch that we're covering, and we want to cover that whole seam plus a little extra on both sides. So we're going for about 1/4 inch for your width here. And so you can see on the tube itself, it has marked 1/4 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch. And so we're going to aim to cut at the 1/4 inch mark. Again, it doesn't have to be exact, but we're going for about somewhere in that ballpark. And what I like to do is twist the tube as you're cutting. Gives you a nice, clean, flat cut. So if you want consistent results, keep it flat. Don't give an angle. If you cut it at an angle, what's going to happen? I'll demonstrate on this piece. So if you have an angle, some people have it like this. When you go to install your caulking, what happens is this piece of the angle actually scrapes the caulk out of your seam, which is completely not what we want. We obviously want that filled with caulk. So by having it flat this way, we're allowing that caulk to fill the gap, and you're not scraping any caulking away. So now that we have it cut, most exterior caulkings are going to have a seal inside that you're going to need to puncture with your little handy dandy poker. Pop. One poke is all you really need. You don't need to get tons of caulk everywhere and make a mess. And we're going to load, give it a few pumps until we're tight. Don't go crazy and pump away. Just get it tight first, get over your workstation, and then we'll go ahead and get it ready to actually start coming out of our tube. So most caulking guns are very similar. This one it has a couple settings. It has the high setting and low setting. We always keep it on the low setting. If you have it on the high setting, that's for more sealants, like bathroom sealants and silicone base, which are way thinner. And so this is a thicker, so we're going to keep it on the low setting for that case. So I'm going to do a demonstration before I actually start here. So if you want to come on over and look at this corner, there's a couple things to keep in mind. You want to think about your pressure that you're keeping on your trigger, and you want to think about the speed that you're going along your line, and you also want to think about your angle that you're going along with your line. So all three of these things are really important to keep in mind. A lot of it just takes practice. A lot of it takes just getting used to the system and getting used to the gun you're using. So it does help to use the same gun over and over so you get used to the feel of each one. But with that, let's go ahead and try the line here. I like to always start from top to bottom, whatever seam I'm doing. Obviously that changes if we're doing a horizontal. Something else I like to do is just go ahead and wipe either with your hand or a rag. If you have a lot of dust, this hardyboard dust you can see, that will keep you from getting a nice seal. So wiping that away beforehand is really helpful to get a nice adhesion. So with that, we're going to go ahead and go through our steps. You are going to get your caulking to where you're just starting to see it come out of the hole here. So I like to give it a few squeezes until you start to see, yep, right there. Now we're ready to go. With this, like I said, it's really thick, so it'll kind of stay in place. Some of them will just explode out, but this one works really well. So now that we have one, we're going to start at the top of our seam here where we're going to be going. I like to keep just a slight forward angle downward. So you're going to be at a 45 degree, pointed into your crack, into the seam you're filling, and then a slight angle, maybe a 15 degree angle downward. And we're going to be moving a downward motion as well as squeezing this trigger at the same time. And you have to play around with the pressure to figure out what gets the caulk out, the consistency and the rate you want it. And that just takes practice. But yeah, we're just gonna keep moving along here. Boom. 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 So there's a few there. We're not going to do all these yet, but just a few things to look at. If you're starting to glob up in one particular spot, that means you're going too slow. You don't want to go really slowly. Sometimes actually going faster in this case is your friend. With Hardy, you do have these ridges, so these kind of can make stops sometimes where you'll catch, and that's why it's also important to have this flat cut instead of the pointed, because that point will dig into those grooves and cause you to stick, and then you'll stop and you'll have big bubbles and just really bad looking lines. So that is it for your verticals. Again, working top to bottom always is going to be your friend. If you're trying to work upward, you're going to again catch these ridges even more, and you're going to end up with inconsistent lines. So let's go ahead and look at a vertical seam here next. So we're going to come along right under this window. Again, we're going to go ahead and wipe things down. On this one, you can see there's a bit of a jog in the cut, which is fine because we have quite a bit of forgiveness with caulking. It covers up a lot of mistake really easily. So it depends on if you're right-handed or left-handed. On vertical or on horizontals, you can go either direction. But again, we're going to try to be at our 45-degree angle into that seam, as well as, all right, so here's our 45, and then as well as our 15-degree angle pushing forward. That's kind of the two things to keep in mind here. So I'm going to work from from right to left. We're going to keep that pressure, find about where we want to be. So when you get to a seam like this, what I like to do is make one pass. You're going to fill up most of it, and we're going to come back and hit that a second time to fill in the rest of that. So there's one pass, and then I'll come back a little before where that seam is. If you want, you can kind of wipe some of your caulk out of the way beforehand, keep it less messy. Come back over, and if you need to do a third pass, that's fine. You can come back as many times as you need. And then most of the time on exterior caulking, you shouldn't need to wipe it away. If you're doing it correctly, you can see I have a little spill here from this extra seam. So I'll go ahead and take my finger. And when you're wiping caulk, you shouldn't end up with a bunch on your finger. What you're wanting to do, you're not wanting to push it out. You're basically just dragging your finger along, sliding really smoothly, and that's going to press it in, because if you're dragging and pushing that caulk really hard, you're basically pushing it out of the seam, and you're not going to get a seal that way. So I'm going to do one more pass through here to get that gap sealed up nicely. One more pass here. You can even go the other direction if you're having issues getting it sealed, and then that way you know that you're locked in and completely sealed. So that is it for caulking.